All right. Hi, and welcome back to fearmeitsbre. I am Bree, and I hope that's obvious by the title of my show, but I didn't know if I should just say that. So today we're going to go over a couple of t-shirts I found at Walmart last night that I was just like, really? This is what's wrong with society. We're going to talk about the Joe Rogan and the doctor that doesn't want to debate RFK Jr. We're going to talk about RFK's Jr.'s stance on gun control. We're going to talk about birth control. And we're going to talk about... There was like another Bud Light related story that I might pull up, but I haven't decided yet. Or I was thinking about pulling up the story about the lost submersible that was doing the tour of the Titanic, and it went missing with like 96 hours of oxygen. And last I knew this morning, they were at like 70 to 96 hours elapsed and still have not been found. I'm actually going to look real quick to see if there's an update on that story. If you would like, though, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at fearmeitsbre. It's the same pretty much everywhere. Rumble was a little funky because it won't let me change my username on there. So that one's a little weird. Jeez. Let's do this first, I guess, the Titanic one, because that's super, super terrible and super sad and super interesting. So this is a Newsweek article from 23 minutes ago, it looks like. So it seems pretty updated as far as I can tell. It looks like the most recent information on this topic. So I'm going to go over there and let's actually just start with that because this is insane. So, passengers aboard the now missing submersible that went to explore the remains of the RMS Titanic may not be able to escape. In 2022, CBS News correspondent David Pogue traveled the submersible called the Titan, operated by OceanGate Expeditions, and this week he explained to BBC the surfacing capabilities of the vessel are limited. There's no backup, there's no escape pod, Pogue told the BBC. It's get to the surface or die. That's exactly what I want to hear when I'm going into a deep sea tour. Wow. The comments by Pogue come shortly after OceanGate Expeditions confirmed to CBS News that a search and rescue mission was underway to locate the Titan, which was traveling to see the wreckage of the Titanic, which sank in 1912 after hitting an iceberg while sailing to New York from Britain on its first voyage, killing about 1,500 people. In a statement, OceanGate Expedition spokesperson Jim Wilkinson and Andrew Von Kerens told the Newsweek, "For some time, we've been unable to establish communications with one of our submersible exploration vehicles, which is currently visiting the wreck site of the Titanic. Our entire focus is the well-being of the crew, and every step possible is being taken to bring the 5 crew members back to safety." So from my understanding, it sounds like it's 5 crew members and then a father and a son. I don't know the ages or anything like that. It just sounds like they lost contact with them sometime Sunday night after they had been down there for like an hour and a half. And then time has progressed. The odds don't look good, unfortunately. That's what it looks like, I guess. The Titan is a carbon fiber and titanium submersible. On Tuesday, June 20th, 2023, CBS News correspondent David Pogue spoke to the BBC about his journey on the Titanic submersible, which is now missing, so that's it. In a series of tweets on Monday, the U.S. Coast Guard and Northeast confirmed they were still searching for the missing submersible. The USCG is searching for a 21-foot submersible from the Canadian research vessel Polar Prince. The 5-person crew submerged Sunday morning, and the crew of the Polar Prince lost contact with them approximately 1 hour and 45 minutes into the vessel's dive. So it was Sunday morning, I guess, not Sunday night. A Canadian aircraft P-3 Aura has arrived on the scene to conduct sonar searches. The RV Polar Prince and RV Deep Energy are continuing their surface searches. Total search area completed this morning is 10,000 square miles. Another tweet Tuesday morning said. That's crazy. So who was on board would be Captain Hamish Harding was on board the missing submersible, as well as others who were identified as Shajda Dawood and his son Sulman, as well as Paul-Henri Nargulat, a Titanic researcher. Harding is chairman of Private Plane from Action Aviation, which said he is one of the mission specialists of the 5-person OceanGate expedition. Vessel reported overdue Sunday evening about 435 miles south of St. John's, Newfoundland, reported The Independent. The Dawood family requested privacy, but The Independent reported he is a business advisor to and The pair are from a wealthy Pakistani family with strong ties to the UK. Nargilot spent 25 years in the French Navy and has done over 35 dives in the Titan. Wow. He's the director of the underwater research for the RMS Titanic Incorporated, which leads expeditions to the wreck that recover artifacts, The Independent reported. The fifth passenger was reported by The Independent to be the CEO of OceanGate Explorations, Stockton Rush. So I think that's about it on that. There's not really that much information out there. I haven't seen too much information out there on it. Just that, yeah, rescuers race against time as passengers are identified. So I guess really now we know who's on it. The U.S. Coast Guard, this is from NBC News, the U.S. Coast Guard is searching for the missing research submersible that disappeared Sunday. The wreckage of the Titanic is 900 nautical miles east of Cape Cod, Massachusetts. The sub had 96 hours of oxygen. The price of a spot in the submersible was $250,000. It was only on its third trip since OceanGate Expeditions began offering them in 2021. So far, a search has yielded no results. He said so far the search has been on the surface and under the water using sonar buoys over an area the size of the state of Connecticut. Wow. The search is ongoing with additional assets on the way to rescue the 5 crew members on board the Titan. There's about 41 hours of oxygen left in the submersible, Frederick said. That was yesterday? Nope, that was today. So that was today. As of 4 minutes ago, they were saying there's about 40 hours of oxygen left. France has sent ships and robots to search for it. The Titan got lost underwater last summer, a CBS correspondent says. So David Pogue, a CBS News correspondent, who we just talked about in the last article, said last year the submersible got lost on the seafloor for a few hours when he was on an OceanGate expedition to visit the Titanic's resting place. On my expedition last summer, they did indeed get lost for about 5 hours, Pogue tweeted Monday. Well, that's important information. A segment on the trip aired in November. Pogue wasn't in the submersible, but he was in a control room on a ship at the surface at the time. He noted the submersible never lost communication with its mothership. He said the Titan didn't have a beacon similar to an aircraft's emergency locator transmitter, but such a beacon was discussed. Well, maybe they should have done that. They could still send short text to the sub, but did not know where it was. It was quiet and tense, and they shut off the ship's internet to prevent us from tweeting, he said on Monday. The company claimed it was to keep all channels open in case of a serious emergency. It was not classed by an independent group that sets safety standards as most chartered vessels were. OceanGate said in a blog post of February 2019, the Titan wasn't classed because its technology was new and their innovation falls outside the existing industry paradigm. It is said to be a multi-year approval cycle due to lack of pre-existing standards. Classing usually checks if vessels meet standards in buoyancy, number of life rafts, and hull materials, the blog post said. OceanGate said that while classing has a safety value, it is not sufficient enough to ensure safety. And no signal is very bad news. I just saw that last piece. It's kind of ironic. It's called the Titan. It went missing where the Titanic is, and it didn't meet its safety expectations because they never had any kind of safety standard, it looks like, aboard the little submarine. And with the Titanic, it also did not meet safety expectations because of the infamous lifeboat situation, which interestingly enough with the Titanic, the lifeboat thing, actually, the lifeboats were never meant, so if a ship went down, right, North Star Line that the Titanic was a part of had a ton of ships that were going to be crossing paths within distance of each other, that if anything ever happened to them and one of the ships went down, there would ideally, unless it was an immediate sinking, ideally there would be another ship within an hour to 2 hour vicinity that would be able to veer off course, come to them. And the lifeboats were really only meant to transport from the compromised vessel to the new one, the rescuer. The lifeboats were never meant for you to sit there and wait for somebody to come get you. They were meant to be a mode of transportation back and forth and back and forth. Granted, yes, the Titanic did have less than it was supposed to because they thought that the deck looked too cluttered. But the reason that this did not work in their favor, where they were like, well, they're only for transport anyway, the reason that the Titanic lifeboats really got a lot of people killed for not having that many, and it didn't work in their favor, is there was a warning that went out to all of the ships that night. And it was, hey, there's icebergs. We recommend you stop for the night and proceed in the morning because it's just too dangerous. We can't chart it. We don't know what's out there. So every other ship heeded that warning and stopped for the night, except for the Titanic, because they had a schedule they wanted to meet. They wanted to prove that they were right on time, as fast as they said they were, and they were, you know, top dog. So they kept going. So when they hit the iceberg and put out that distress signal, the other ships that were supposed to be within the rescue vicinity did respond. But because they had all stopped for the night and the Titanic had plowed forward, they were like, I think the closest one was 4 hours away? So they were no longer within that vicinity to ideally safely transport passengers from the sinking ship to the rescue ship. So technically speaking, if they had been within the vicinity of the Carpathia, the one that came back for them, more people probably would have survived because they would have been able to back and forth with lifeboats in time. But because they decided to jump the gun and keep going, and we all know how the story goes, the less lifeboats than normal really ended up being a terrible twist of fate, and 1,500 people died that night. Anyway, interesting history tidbit for you that was totally uncalled for, but yeah. So that's terrible, though, about those people. I cannot imagine the claustrophobia and fear of being down there in the ocean and knowing that your time is running out. So definitely prayers for them. I hope that they find them, and they find them alive, and they find them within enough time to rescue them. Obviously they're not meant to be down there for 96 hours, but that's the emergency supply for air. But who knows as well, pressure, right? You got to depressurize, I think. I don't know how long it is that you are under that you have to depressurize before you can come back to the surface, because it will mess you up. So I hope those people are okay, and that's terrible. I'm going to keep an eye on that because that is a crazy scenario. So we're going to move on from that, and I'm going to show what I saw yesterday at Walmart. I have the screen pulled up over here. So these two shirts were on a rack at Walmart, and I just was like, I was walking around in the clearance section, because sometimes I do that. I'll look at clothes or something. And I just walked in, and there were a ton of others too that were like girl power and just feminist mantras and bullcrap. And this one, I just started laughing. The flowers are cute, I'll give it that. But it's, your feelings matter. And it's like, we wonder why we're such a sensitive, depraved, self-obsessed society. And in the literal junior section, so this is a 7 through 9 medium. So like, these are junior sizes. These are meant for teenage girls, right? They also have like extra small, which would be like 0 to 1, I think. So like, these are sizes of girls who are at the ages of 12 to 18. Generally, these styles are meant for those age groups. Not to say that a woman can't shop in the junior section, because I was clearly looking in there at t-shirts and things, but technically these shirts are geared toward the younger generation, and to be, oh, your feelings matter and all this coddling. The other one said, with this picture of a planet, like it's a creative, design, everything does revolve around me. And it's like, ugh, I hate it. Because it's like, no, everything does not revolve around you. You are such a small part of this world. Okay? People don't have to bend over backwards for you. Your feelings really don't matter in the long run. It just is annoying to me where we have this sensitive, self-obsessed society. We wonder why, and it's because we're promoting these kinds of messages to people. But anyway, that was kind of a dumb rant that I just rolled my eyes at, because I was like, you've got to be kidding me. It just is dumb and stupid, and I just get aggravated because it's like, when I see all those like, the future is female, girls rule the world does revolve around me, and it's like, no, it doesn't. Please just stop virtue signaling and stop pumping these narratives into people that are gonna grow up one day. So like, like I said, this is an extra small, so this is probably like, anyone could fit it of any age, but typically this is the size that a 12 to 14-year-old girl would wear, probably. So you're letting these 12 to 14-year-old girls wear all these, everything does revolve around me, my feelings matter, I'm valid shirts. Not to say that nobody's valid, because you are people's lives matter. So it's like, yes, you do matter, but everything does not revolve around you. And they go to school, they live their lives wearing these shirts, and they get all this positive affirmation that one day when they go into the world, and it's like, oh, the world's actually not that nice of a place. They're going to see that as everybody being mean to them, or people who are trying to help them and tell them no for once in their life in their best interest. They're going to be like, well, you're just being mean because look at my shirt. My feelings matter. And it's like, oh my gosh, that's literally how it goes though. And this is why these are the narratives that these corporations are pushing on children. Anyway, we're going to move on from that. And we're going to go over to the Joe Rogan one. It is a New York Post article, so it's definitely not going to paint Kennedy Jr. in a very favorable light, but I decided to pick it because, why not? Joe Rogan challenges Dr. Peter Hotez to debate anti-vaxxer. Already it's off to that start. RFK Jr. on his podcast. And this was published June 18th, so it's 2 days ago. So it's still pretty relevant. Podcast host Joe Rogan challenged vaccine researcher Dr. Peter Hotez, somebody tell me how to pronounce that. I'm going to go with Hotez, to debate presidential candidate and anti-vaxxer Robert F. Kennedy Jr. after he criticized the Democratic presidential candidate for doubling down on his controversial stance on the Joe Rogan Experience last week. Rogan has pledged to donate $100,000 to a charity of Hotez, choosing if he agreed to appear with... Wow, the way they worded that is really weird, but I understand it. My brain just didn't want to process it at first. Rogan pledged to donate $100,000 to a charity of Hotez, choosing if he agreed to appear with the political scion, who has launched a long-shot bid to dethrone President Biden in the 2024 Democratic primary. Rogan's challenge, which has since been viewed over 25 million times, prompted Hotez to respond in a now-deleted tweet, which turned into a back-and-forth exchange. "Be serious, Joe. That's what you throw for your hunting buddies on a weekend," Hotez said. "A $50 million endowment, which you, Spotify, RFK Jr. can easily afford. Not for me, but so we can continue making low-cost patent-free vaccines for the world's poor," preceded by RFK Jr.'s public apology. I'm sorry, when somebody is not willing to do something for free, in that sense of, whoa, I'm not taking that low amount, you better hardball it. Or not words. I drank water and it just, everything went away. But you better pitch me a better throw here. I want more money. Not for me though. No, it's to help the medical field. Tell me it's not that he's not considering it, but he's like, So, my trust in this man is very thin. Twitter owner Elon Musk chimed in saying Hotez hates charity, while Kennedy agreed to respectful, congenial, informative debate that the American people deserve. "From all the online attacks I've been receiving after this absurd podcast, it's clear many actually believe this nonsense," Hotez tweeted on Saturday, along with a Vice News article claiming Spotify was no longer monitoring Rogan's vaccine information, including the conspiracy theory that, I'm just going to say these, because the V word, because I don't know if this is going to mess me up at all, that the V's cause autism, after Kennedy's interview on Rogan's podcast. The CDC the CDC says there's no link between V's and A. During Rogan's interview with Kennedy, released Thursday, Hotez was brought up as a point of discussion as the podcast host criticized the doctor for previously stating he did not take basic measures to help boost his immune system. To have a conversation with someone who doesn't take vitamins and is telling you have to take this medication is like, this is a crazy conversation, Rogan said to Kennedy about his April 2020 interview with Hotez. During the appearance, the former Fear Factor host grilled him over his personal health and lifestyle decisions. Hotez conceded, "I'm not as cautious about my diet as I should be. I'm a junk foodaholic." And everybody slips up, right? I'll get Taco Bell once in a while. I actually just had it the other night, and oh my gosh, I could go into that story. Let's just say that they did not get my order right at all. We have a lot of issues with a specific location. I don't want to bash on them too much, but it ended up with them being like, "What was your order?" And they literally started handing me stuff and being like, "Was it this? Was it this? Was it that?" And I was like, no, it was this. And I literally had to tell them the order 6 times and be like, okay, the number 10 is this, and it comes with this. And this is the drink that I ordered. And they were looking at me like Like it wasn't even an item on the menu. I don't know. I digress though. Everybody makes these bad decisions, right? I'll go to Taco Bell once in a while. I'll get coffee out. You know what I mean? Where it's like everyone does things that are not great for them. But as long as you're at home, that in theory, at home, I try to practice more healthy habits. Obviously you can't, like if you're getting food out, you can't control what's in it. You can't control this, you can't control that. But what I can control, I try and read ingredients and I try and get things that have, well, less of these bad ingredients. Instead of having 25 bad ingredients, this one only has 5. It's what I can afford. So things like that. So to say that somebody's not relevant just because they exhibit unhealthy habits once in a while isn't necessarily correct. But at the same time, I understand what Joe Rogan's saying here, where he's like, this guy's not at all a picture of health, and yet he's out there being like, you need to do this, you need to do that. I don't think I would take advice from this man at all, and I can't believe that as a country we did. Hotez, the director of Baylor College of Medicine's National School of Tropical Medicine, said he would be happy to come on and clear the air, while also extending a counteroffer to Musk, inviting him to visit the vaccine laboratories and learn more about our work. Rogan called the re-response, a non-answer, voiced his displeasure with the doctor, calling him out instead of reaching privately. I challenged you to publicly, because you publicly quote tweeted and agreed that to that dog blank Vice article. Okay. If you're really serious about what you stand for, you now have a massive opportunity for a debate that will reach the largest audience a discussion like this has ever had. Sorry, I'm like having a stroke or something. If you think someone else is better qualified, suggest that person, Rogan proclaimed. Hotez, who acknowledged his deleted tweet was unnecessarily provocative, claimed he was hurt when Rogan and his guests labeled him as a pharma shill before saying the comedian had his cell phone number and email, seemingly wanting to take the exchange offline. Kennedy is trailing Biden by a margin of 62-15 among the Democratic voters in a recent Harvard CAPS Harris poll. His longtime prominent anti-V views were highlighted during the COVID-19 pandemic, which he railed against V's and pushed for the use of the miracle drug that starts with an I that I don't know if I can say, a parasite treatment medicine, or anti-malaria drug, the H word that I don't know if I can say. Let's just say hydrochlorine, see if it picks that up, to treat the virus instead, which, let me tell you, that those are effective. Talk to your doctor before I get in trouble, but from what I've heard from people's experience that I know who have personally taken both of those things, they seem to be effective and they seem to be safe. So take it for what you will, grain of salt. The Food and Drug Administration and medical experts such as Dr. Anthony Fauci have warned against using the unauthorized drugs for COVID treatment. Rogan himself stumbled into the controversy during the pandemic for using the one that starts with I to treat his COVID-19 infection. He also publicly questioned the wisdom of younger people receiving the COVID-19 V. Kennedy is one of 2 Democratic primary challenges to Biden alongside self-help author and spiritual guru Marianne Williamson, who sounds like a crackpot, honestly. His anti-V work has drawn repudiation from members of his own family, which his sister Carrie Kennedy telling the Associated Press in 2021 that he is completely wrong on the issue and is very dangerous. The nephew of President John F. Kennedy and Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, both assassinated in the 60s, also told Rogan that he is taking precautions to avoid being assassinated by the CIA, who he blames for killing his uncle, which seems pretty plausible at this point. The U.S. government has debunked that claim as a conspiracy theory, maintaining the convicted shooter Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone in the 1963 presidential murder. Yeah, well, Lee Harvey Oswald was an easy fall guy who it just was like, disregard it, we got the guy, but there was a lot of weird stuff around it that I don't know that I trust that he acted alone or was even the guy in the first place, behind it all at least. So anyway, yeah, this is the guy. Like, he looks crazy. He looks like a little mad scientist, right? He definitely isn't somebody that I would trust. And he acts weird. Like, the videos I've seen of him, it's like, you're an oddball. What's wrong with you? So anyway, that was interesting to me. There's more to it. There's more to the story. It's an ongoing Twitter battle between RFK. Crap. Who are the two? Was it Peter McCullough? I think Peter McCullough said that he would be willing to join in on this debate if it actually happened between them all. He is interested in being there. So my big thing is, all right, dude, this fancy guy who's all like, oh, you know, I have medical knowledge and I am important. He's like, but I'm not going to debate you. Like, it's just so dumb. And then people are like supporting him and being like, yeah, he shouldn't have to debate you. Why? Because his narrative will fall apart? I don't know. I just don't trust it. That said, I'm going to pull up. I was asked how I felt about Kennedy Jr. And I like him. I do like his stance on the V word. I think he's questioning a lot of things that I think that we need questioned. My husband and I were talking about him last night, though. And he did a Twitter space a ways back where Josie, the redheaded libertarian, shared a clip from with Elon Musk and a bunch of others. And her tweet was, RFK's full position on the Second Amendment in his own words. He commits to not taking anyone's guns, and he commits to funding studies on antidepressants and antipsychotics as they pertain to school shootings, which that's very good. I do like that. That's good. However, I don't like what he said in this space where he said, I'm gonna play it so you can hear his words, not mine. So let me just turn myself down for 1 second and make sure I have this all ready to go. So you're going to hear a brief moment of silence, and I'm going to play that now. I think I have.
On the gun controls, I'm not going to take away anybody's guns. I'm a constitutional absolutist, and we can argue about whether the Second Amendment was intended to protect guns. But that argument is now been settled by the Supreme Court, and it has the Supreme Court, the Antonin Scalia's decision is a very expansive interpretation of the right to own a gun. But more importantly, I don't, anybody who tells you that with incremental changes or incremental laws in regulating guns. And by the way, I want to say this. I have 2 members of my family that were killed in gun violence. So, I understand the heartbreak that this is causing to so many Americans. It's touched my family directly. And I know as president that you are going to expect me, and I'm going to do everything I can to reduce gun violence in this country. I think one of the tools that has been taken out of my hands is taking away people's guns. I don't think it's the right thing right now because it will just polarize our country.
So that's where he kind of lost me a little bit, where he said, one of the things that has been taken out of my hands is the banning of owning firearms and basically the repealing of the Second Amendment. And he said, yet. He said, I don't think that's whatever he said, something we can do yet. So that concerns me immensely. As much as I like his stance on the V word, and I think that he would be a very intelligent contender to Joe Biden. I know he has some speech issues and that's kind of hard to listen to, but even then, Joe Biden against him would be smoked out of the water. But I don't like that he said yet. I do like that he goes on to talk about we should look into what drugs we're giving people, how this is influencing things, how their mental health is. But I don't like that I had even on the table that yet, because that's a red flag to me, as great as he seems. He's not somebody that I would vote for. I wouldn't vote Democrat anyway right now with how the party platform is. I never have, and I probably never will. I'm not interested in voting with them because of their track record. However, if for some reason that's who it came down to, and it was like, oh, you want RFK or do you want Gavin Newsom? It's like, okay, I guess RFK. But I do sympathize with him on the CIA thing. I sympathize with him on, he lost, what did he say, his father and his uncle. that's huge. He knows what it's like to lose somebody to a shooting, to something crazy like that, an assassination. His fears are valid. I don't know that he would be physically assassinated, where it's more of a, like people have talked about, it's more, we've moved on to character assassination. We've moved on to, you know what, taking your life would just make you a martyr at this point. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to lie about you. We're going to take your legacy and we're going to drag it through the mud so that people won't even want to vote for you. People will see you as the bad guy, and we will make it so that you are blacklisted and you cannot compete anywhere and you cannot win anywhere because people will hear your name and they will think your name is Mud. Fun fact, that saying your name is Mud actually comes from the doctor who treated John Wilkes Booth after Abraham Lincoln's assassination. Booth escaped, right? And he went to the mud farm. And Dr. Mudd was there, and obviously news didn't necessarily travel super fast. He just knew an injured man was on his property, so he treated him and helped him. And then later it was found out, and his family's name and reputation was destroyed. So when people say your name is Mud, conveniently, yes, it's the same word we use for wet dirt, but your name is Mud also means you're just as bad as the guy that helped the man who killed President Lincoln. So I don't know. I'm full of historical facts today. Isn't it fun? Anyway, so I could go on, but it's like a 5-minute video. So I don't think I'm going to go through it, but I do like what he says about that, because we have people on mind altering drugs. And I'm not just talking about people using marijuana. I'm talking about, or people taking CBD. I'm talking about prescription hardcore stuff that messes with them. If you watch any commercial, the side effects list is, you know, the jokes about, I think there's a meme where it's like everyone's like happy and having salad, and it's like, meanwhile the commercial's going, side effects may include, and they list off like all these terrible things involving self-harm and worse, that you might want to do to yourself because of this medication that you're on, or thoughts of hurting other people, or this, and this. And it's like, well, we have almost everybody being treated for something that you might be able to treat holistically. I'm not going to go into too much of this because I have opinions on this that are better reserved for a more topical episode, I suppose. But you know what I mean? Just lifestyle, diet, you can improve your life so much through that. I personally have noticed a huge change in myself where I'm not the best at exercising. It's not something that I love doing. So it's something I have to force myself to do when I do it. I do, however, notice a huge change from me right after I had my daughter. I had to give myself a little grace too, because I just had a baby, but the bad habit followed me beyond just the postpartum phase, where I was getting DoorDash like crazy. And I just was like, it's so hard to do stuff, kids, but I'll get Wendy's for breakfast. And I put on a ton of weight over that like course of time. And then I got more strict with it and was like, we're not going to do this super often. We're done. And I lost a ton of weight basically just by not eating Wendy's 5 days a week, or McDonald's 5 days a week, Taco Bell 5 days a week, whatever I was getting. And really cutting down at home on snacking and focusing on meals, right? Focusing on, you know, I'm not a huge breakfast person. So I have, I know you're supposed to have coffee on an empty stomach, and it's a habit I'm trying to break, but I'll have like my something small in my coffee. Lunch is kind of like a little snacky endeavor where it's like, you know, you can have like cheese and crackers or something light. Minimal snacking throughout the day. And then dinner is where I try and focus on having your protein, having your healthy fat, having your carb that's not just an empty carb, which I could go into, but again, it's a totally different topic. But anyway, there's so many things that I saw an improvement in myself. Even though I wasn't necessarily buying everything all organic, I was paying attention to ingredients and being like, well, this bread has 25 awful ingredients. This one only has 5 terrible ingredients. Avoiding seed oils, that was really big for me as well. I noticed weight fluctuation. I started really thinning out when I stopped having International Delight, Coffee Mate, all of those like flavored foo-foo creamers. One, they're non-dairy. 2, their base is oil, palm oil, kernel oil. They don't even know what oil it is. If you ever look in the ingredients on those things, it is literally oil with some flavoring. And when I stopped having those and started having just cream in my coffee, or even I would sometimes, occasionally, like right now, find a coffee creamer that was real dairy with real ingredients. So I have a s'mores one that's Chobani brand, I think, and it's real cream, real milk, cocoa, sugar, and vanilla. And it's delicious. And I'll get those occasionally, but for the most part, if I just have cream and a little bit of sugar in my coffee, I don't get as bloated as when I have all of the fancy creamers that are actually banned in other countries because of how poor the ingredient quality is. So that's just an example of lifestyle. Sometimes lifestyle changes help you so immensely. And especially with me feeling, so when I was being less healthy, I felt miserable. All the time, I was just fatigued. I was always down. I didn't feel good. And then when I started cleaning up my diet a little, and not to say that I don't still get Taco Bell, right? I'm not perfect. I still enjoy eating out. I still enjoy junk food occasionally. But it's the kind of thing where when you really clean something like that up, you feel so much better. Mentally, you feel so much better. I can attest to that. So what he's saying about, we have all these people on these drugs that, could be fixed by natural resources. We don't necessarily need to put people on this stuff. They're mind altering. Who knows what they're doing to them? We need to look into how that is contributing to school shootings. We need to look into how that is contributing to the violence in our streets and the crime rates. I like that. I would hope that somebody does that, if not him. So anyway, that's my thoughts on RFK and a side tangent about my lifestyle. So we're gonna now look at, speaking of hormones and stuff, we're gonna talk about birth control. So Tim Cast had a great article on it. Hannah Claire Brimlow wrote it. Brimlow. I still can never pronounce her name right. But we're gonna look at it because I am vehemently against hormonal birth control. And that could be a whole nother episode in itself if you want to hear about that. But I'm not saying that you can't use other contraceptives. I'm not saying that condoms are bad. I'm saying hormonal birth control messes women's bodies up. It can change your pheromones. It can change the way you perceive other people. So some women go on birth control, fall in love with a guy, get married, and then go off of birth control. And they're like, whoa, why am I less attracted to you? Because it messes with your mind and it messes with your body and it messes with your hormones. But that's another topic for another day. Not to mention that a lot of them do not. So, right, as someone who believes that life begins at conception, Plan B and hormonal birth control, they allow fertilization of the egg, right? So they allow that egg and that sperm to meet. They allow fertilization. And then they normally thin the uterine lining so that the little embryo is bouncing around and cannot attach, eventually dies, and you pass it like a clot. As someone who believes that life begins at conception, that is an abortion. However, there are types of birth control, such as condoms or spermicides. I'm sorry, I try and keep this family friendly, but this goes into this topic where the egg and the sperm are never allowed to meet. There is no fertilization, and therefore a life has not been created. And I think that those are all right if that's what you want to use, right? But the ones that allow fertilization and allow that life to be created and then snuff that life out or aid in the death of that tiny life, that's another reason that I'm against this kind of stuff. But there are forms of birth control, and I don't want to say, I hate saying family planning because it's like all this family planning stuff is normally in relation to how you can kill the child that you've just created because it's an inconvenience to you. But there are natural ways of doing it that don't do that. But that's another aside. So we'll jump into Hannah Claire's article, right? Women who start birth control in teens, 130% more likely to exhibit depression symptoms. Women are twice as likely to be diagnosed with depression. When you're messing with somebody's hormones, like we've talked about with the transgender children and not allowing them to go through puberty, when you mess with someone's hormones, you mess them up because their body is not doing what it was naturally created to do. A new study found women who start taking birth control pills as teenagers are 130% more likely to have symptoms of depression. a team of researchers analyzed the results of health surveys completed by 264,557 women and found that oral contraceptive users reported a 92% increase in depression. Moreover, the study found that women who began the pill at or before age 20 are significantly more likely to have depression symptoms than women who do not use oral contraceptives. So, right, every teenage girl knows you go into the doctor's office, and what is one of the first things they ask you? Would you like your Gardasil vaccine? And do you want to go on birth control? You should go on birth control. Every little hormonal thing that a woman has, oh, you've got bad acne, birth control. Your periods are heavy, birth control. You have mood swings, birth control. And I've heard it said that it's really just a Band-Aid solution onto a deeper issue. Why are your periods heavy? What is your diet like? What is your lifestyle like? Are you getting enough iron? Are you taking in enough food to nourish yourself? Why do you have mood swings? Could it be something that you're already taking? Could it be this? Could it be that? Why do you have acne? Again, could be dietary, could be environmental. Does not mean that you need to clog up your hormones and mess with your hormones to fix it with a Band-Aid solution to a deep-rooted problem. Our findings suggest that the use of OCs, which is the oral contraceptive, particularly used during the first 2 years, increases risk of depression, states the report, which was published by Cambridge University Press on June 12th. Additionally, OC use during adolescence might increase the risk of depression later in life. Our results are consistent with a causal relationship between OC use and depression, and as supported by the sibling analysis. Although the risk was not as pronounced beyond the first 2 years, every OC use was still associated with an increased lifetime risk of depression, the study noted. Physicians and patients should be aware of this potential risk while considering OCs, and the individualized risk-benefit assessment should be conducted. Rates of depression remained high even among teen users who had stopped taking the pill, and that's because it takes a long time to leave your system once it's in it. So people have the misconception that you can go on hormonal birth control, you can take the pills, and then say, we're ready to have a baby now. I guess I'll just stop taking the pills. No, your body has to come down off of that because you've been for, let's say you're 25 and you were put on birth control at 15. You have 10 years of effing around with your hormones that your body has to compensate and start producing its own hormones and detox you from, right? So you can't just expect to get pregnant right after. Some women, infertility is actually a risk of taking these things. And that's in the pamphlets that are in them when they give them to you. But they don't want you to see that you could become infertile if your hormones are messed up by this too much. The study is one of the largest and most wide-ranging ever completed on the subject. It also compounds other recent research linking oral birth control to depression in women. Although contraception has many advantages for women, both medical practitioners and patients should be informed about the side effects identified in the previous research, says Therese Johansson. Johansson. I thought it was Johnson for a second. Of the Department of Immunology, Genetics, Pathology at Uppsala University in a statement. Johansson was one of the researchers who led the study. The powerful influence of contraceptive pills on teenagers can be ascribed to hormonal changes caused by puberty. As women in that age group have already experienced substantial hormonal changes, they can be more receptive not only to hormonal changes but also to other life experiences, she added. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, I don't know why I just didn't just say that. Approximately 65% of women in America between the ages of 15 and 49 used some type of contraception between 2015 and 2017. 65% between the ages of 15 and 49 between 2015 and 2017. I thank God that I was not one of those women. My mom was like, no, you're not putting my daughter who is not sexually active. And it's not just her being like, oh, Mom, I'm not sexually active, wink, wink. I genuinely wasn't as a teenager. We rejected Gardasil. We rejected birth control because there was no reason for me to be on it. And I'm thankful that my parents rejected that for me because who knows how it could have messed me up. But 65% women are normally menopausal. Granted, I've known women who didn't actually go through menopause till they were like 50, which is kind of crazy. But most women 35 to 50, let's just throw that number out there, right, are going through or have gone through menopause. And yes, there is that last chance ditch effort of your body being like, it's my last shot, I better make a baby. yes, there is that where you're highly, highly fertile at like 35. But once you go beyond that peak, you don't really need to be on birth control anymore because your body cannot get pregnant anymore. It can no longer, you don't have periods anymore. You no longer are able to carry a child. These women don't need to be on birth control at these ages necessarily, or they need to stop. One, it's hard because yes, the perfect Christian married couple will probably use birth control because they don't want to just pop out baby after baby after baby after baby. Obviously, you have to be intelligent, right, with what you're doing. But there are other ways aside from messing your hormones up to prevent a pregnancy, right? Of these women, 12.6% used birth control pills and 10.3% used long-acting reversible contraceptives such as injection or in uterine devices. So like what's it called, the little Y-shaped thing that you can have block things off. I cannot think of what it's called for some reason, but you guys know what I'm talking about, I'm sure. The most common form of contraceptive was female sterilization, colloquially known as getting your tubes tied, although it was significantly more common among women over 30, which I guess, that is not something that I ever intend to do. My husband and I have talked about that, and we've decided that if anything, that he will be the one to eventually have something done, because one, it is incredibly invasive for women. And I'm not saying if you've done it as a woman or if you're planning on doing it, it's not necessarily like morally wrong or anything, but just for me personally, with all the research I've done, it's not something I am comfortable doing with how invasive it is, and it's completely irreversible. But again, that's something that you have to decide for yourself, what you're comfortable with. Especially where eventually, I'm going to go through menopause. I won't always be able to produce children, so it doesn't seem necessary for me to do that. But that's still, it's down the road, But anyway, when I was pregnant with my daughter, I think I've said this before, there were a ton of there was like this like big poster in the bathroom, ton of push for birth control, big poster in the bathroom that said the most effective form of birth control is sterilization, and that's the recommended one, like getting your tubes tied, which they're not wrong. That is the most effective form of birth control because it keeps things from happening or having your uterus removed. But it's like, why are you promoting that to like everybody as, hey, like it was a very like brightly graphic, fun poster where it was all like, hey, you want to have sex but you don't want to get pregnant? Here's how to prevent it. Get sterilized, or you can use these other forms. Like that's very much how that poster presented. About 70% of females between the ages of 15 to 19 use the pills, as did about 20% of women between 20 and 29 and 11% of women aged 30 to 39. And we wonder what is wrong with women. Birth control pill usage increased with higher education. Women who had obtained a bachelor's degree, 16.3%, were more likely to use the pill than women with some college education, 10.1%. Women with a high school diploma or GED, 7%, or women with no high school diploma or equivalency, 4.9%. The Mayo Clinic reported in 2019 that women are twice as likely as men to be diagnosed with depression. The clinic did not acknowledge birth control as a possible contributing factor. Anyway, so that was just very interesting to me, and I appreciated that article because I'm very much against hormonal birth control. If that's what you want to do, then, I'm not going to judge you for it. But I will warn you about the side effects and about how it messes you up. Because that is something that it's not good for women. But anyway, I'm just going to refresh this page real quick because I just got a notification. So I have a live thing open about the Titan that we talked about at the beginning, the submersible, and I just got a notification where it's like saying like, oh, there's an update. This looks like information though I already read in the other article where it says the CEO of OceanGate Expeditions is on board. There's only 41 hours of oxygen supply left in the missing vessel. Yep, this looks this looks very, we already went over this information in the other article, so It's an update for NBC News, but it looked like what did I say it was? Newsweek already covered it in the other article that I did. So I think, let me just check. Where are we at? 50 minutes. I think I'll call it good. I don't know that I'll jump on tomorrow. I have some stuff I've got to get done. I don't think I'll have time. I think that I will try and record either Thursday if I end up just being home, or I will try on Friday. I know Friday's kind of a rough day to put something like this out because people are not going to care and not going to watch it till, if at all, Monday. So I just still, for the sake of getting something out there, I might record and throw something out on Friday. I have not decided yet, though, and again, I want to be more consistent with this, but summer, being a parent, makes summers crazy. So we will see. Tonight, I wanted to throw this out there. I will be on the Daily Wire Friends fan podcast at 9 p.m. EST on YouTube. If you want to look that up, I can link them in the video description so that you can find their channel. Usually they start around 9 and goes for about an hour and a half or so. So that will be out there as well if anyone would like to tune into that. Again, you can follow me at fearmeitsbre on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and all the things. And I hope everyone has a great rest of their afternoon. And I will see y'all next time.